One of the factors determining whether Sir Keir Starmer will get his hands on the keys to number 10 Downing Street next year is going to be how Scotland votes. So what impact, if any, will last week's by-election victory in Rutherglen and Hamilton West have on Labour's attempts to pursue Scottish votes? The Shadow Scottish Secretary Ian Murray is with us here at the BBC stall. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining
us. Nice to see you in person.
Yes, indeed. You're no longer the Lone Ranger of Scottish Labour in London. Jackie Bailey said they'd found you a wee friend to sit next to you in the benches.
Well, it's wonderful, isn't it? And that's the consequence of Thursday is, yes, of course, wide-ranging, but actually in terms of Scottish representation for Labour at Westminster, we've doubled our representation and we're looking forward to getting stuck in when we get back next week.
There's been lots of panda jokes.
Lots of panda jokes. I'm not actually sure Edinburgh has two pandas anymore, but never mind.
They don't leave in December, and they certainly have never managed to get a third. Maybe you'll be luckier than that. We've heard from the party saying that, you know, at the start of this year there was a target for 6 seats, and now you're looking at targeting 28 seats. Is that realistic now?
Well, if you think about the progress that's been made, I think when I became Shadow Scottish Secretary, when Keir Starmer won the leadership of the Labour Party in 2020, many of journalists were asking me whether or not the Scottish Labour Party could survive. And as Sauer came in the following year, we were at 14% in the polls. We have been targeting lots of seats across Scotland, and then the result on Thursday was just the sort of culmination of that first stage of recovery. We're looking now forward to winning every vote on every doorstep across Scotland, because we feel as if we've got a real message of change to put forward to people, and they're really responding to it.
Well, how they might be responding if you're knocking on their door several times, but you can't replicate what you did in Rutherglen and Hamilton West right across the country.
Well, our candidates will work very hard, and our membership and has their mojo back, if I can put it that way, in terms of getting out there and getting the positive message. They're very keen for a UK Labour government, they're very keen for a Labour Scottish government, and when you've got a party that has got the change message, got a really positive policy platform to put forward, and you've got the momentum from things like by-elections, it's really quite powerful.
Do you have a positive policy platform to put forward? Because nobody seems to know what your platform is. We know plenty about what Sir Keir Starmer is planning not to do at the next general election. We don't really know what you're planning to do.
Well, Keir's set out the skeleton of the 5 missions. You'll see this week in his speech tomorrow to the party conference more meat on the bones of that. And over the next 12 months of the election, we'll be building that positive policy platform out. But what we have done, and what Anas Sarwar, since he became leader, has relentlessly focused on, is the priorities of the Scottish people. The cost of living crisis, the energy crisis, growth, jobs, the NHS, public services. He's been solely focused on those issues, and those are the issues that the Scottish people see as their priorities as well. And when you concentrate on people's priorities and you listen to what they're saying to you and you respond to that, people do respond at the ballot box.
You mentioned public services, but Sir Keir Starmer's already said he wouldn't be pouring tons of extra money into public services. There couldn't be a massive expenditure on it because of the situation with the economy.
It's not just about pouring money in. You need to do 2 things. You need to grow the economy to generate the wealth to be able to put back into public services, and you need to reform our public services. There's lots you can do without money. You just have to concentrate in the right places, and you'll see from the announcement he made yesterday about trying to get waiting lists down in England. 1 in 7 in Scotland are on waiting lists as well. We need to have a focus on making sure people can get operations to get them back into the workplace. The biggest retreat from the workplace in the last 12 months has been people on the NHS waiting lists.
I wonder what any new Labour government, if elected next year, would do in terms of the way that you work with the SNP government at Holyrood. Is there a better relationship to be had there? Well,
I'll be laying that out in my speech to the party conference today, because I think what the Scottish people want is both governments, of whatever colour they are, to work together. 70% in the latest poll says that they just want both governments to work together to address their priorities and the concerns of the Scottish people. I'm determined, if I become Scottish Secretary, to try and resolve some of those relationship problems, at least until 2026, till the election. We'll know we'll have an SNP government in Scotland, and we've got to try and find ways to get working together and make those intergovernmental relations work properly. Well,
I'm thinking just in terms of, you know, would you remove the Section 35 block on the Gender Reform Act?
Well, it takes 2 to tango, and if your partner doesn't want to tango, then that's entirely the view of the Scottish Government, then that's absolutely fine. But we'll be doing everything we can in government to try and govern in the interests of the Scottish people, putting the nation before party is exactly where we need to be, and it's the same message across the UK.
Can you categorically say that a Labour government at Westminster wouldn't block legislation in the same way that the current Scottish Secretary has done?
Well, we can't categorically say that, because the reason that Section 35 exists in the Scotland Act, it was developed by Donald Dewar when he was First Minister, was to make sure devolution could work. And what we need to do is make sure that Section 35 is the very, very last resort and not the first resort, and that means you've got to repair relationships and work together.
What about the Internal Market Act? Labour was opposed to it when it went through Westminster. Would you remove it now?
Well, we'll have to see where we are when we come to the election. I can't see the Internal Market Act being removed early on because it needs to be there to operate the internal market of the United Kingdom. So we'll see, all these things and all these details will be worked through as we get closer to the election. But the bottom line here is that we've got to have intergovernmental relations that mean that both governments, whatever colour, have to work together. And hopefully we'll see a Scottish Labour government in Scotland in 2026, and that'll make things an awful lot easier.
Shadow Scottish Secretary Ian Murray, thank you very much indeed for joining us
My
this
pleasure.
morning. You'll be back up. We'll hear lots more from the party conference. We'll speak to Lord Mandelson at just after 8:30.